Good evening. All right, we're in Texas. Thank you for responding. My name is Darren K. Roberts. I'm the founding director of the Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation at the University of Texas at Austin. And I am very proud to be a member of the inaugural class of PLS in 2015. I'm also a fifth-generation East Texan. And so at the age of 7, I set a goal for myself to become governor of Texas by age 40. Now, I turned 40 last November, so obviously I took a wrong turn somewhere. But during that time at the University of Texas, I applied to Harvard Law School. I was waitlisted 4 years in a row, and I finally get in. So in my second year at law school in the summer, I worked a football camp and decided that I wanted to become a football coach. So I write a letter to every team in the NFL. I received 31 rejections, and finally got the one yes that I needed from Herm Edwards with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I began that training camp internship, and that led to 7 years of coaching in the NFL and college. It was in 2013 that I realized that I was spending all of my time with other people's sons, but my own son didn't know me. And so I returned to the University of Texas and created the Center for Sports Leadership and Innovation, where we teach financial literacy and leadership to our student athletes there at the university. I joined PLS at a period of dramatic transition in my life. I was building our center, and if I were to be honest, I was really coming to PLS to get as much strategy as I possibly could for our launch. Little did I know that the most valuable contribution that I would receive would be joining a team of friends who are committed to disrupting the status quo of their communities. From President Clinton, I learned the importance of using humility to find some undercurrent of truth in our adversaries. And from President Bush, I learned the power of faith and how I could use it to fuel my perseverance through periods of adversity. PLS taught me that to incite real change, empathy must precede strategy. And so when I left PLS, I went on a 3-month listening tour. I spoke to everyone from Pop Warner coaches to NBA players. Today, I'm happy to say that our Captain's Academy, a program that I launched and created from the PLS model, has taught over 1,000 student athletes across the country how to hone their personal leadership skills. And in 2020, we will be partnering with a Japanese university to replicate that model there. I am forever grateful to this community of doers. And I think about that time, and I'm always reminded that it is always the right time to wage war against our status quo. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Marta Michelle Colon, and I am the founder of Buena Gente. It was only 28 months ago that the Presidential Leadership Scholar Program enabled me to discover a group of leaders with diverse opinions and mindset, however, weaved by the aspiration of creating positive impact in the world. A vivid memory of that positive impact comes to mind when I think of Neha Misra, PLS class of 2017 and co-founder of Solar Sister. When Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, we felt traumatized and distressed. My son Salvador shared that he wanted to do something to make people feel better, safer, and healthier. He wanted to provide solar lamps and hand-operated washing machines. When he shared his idea, the only person I thought could help him was Neha because of her experience and expertise in Africa. Neha took of her precious time to guide and support Salvador to create light and hope for Puerto Rico. His goal was to raise $100,000 and impact 1,000 families. With NEHA's guidance, he was able to raise over $168,000 and impact over 3,800 families. The experience of being part of the PLS family goes with me every day, personally and professionally. Everything I learned through the program, the friendships I was able to establish, the way we celebrate each other's success, and how we accompany each other in sadness provides me the opportunity, the understanding, and the resiliency to be better as an individual, to be better to my family, to my community, and to the world. Thank you.
Well, thank you to Darren and Marta Michelle. I am Holly Kuzmich, the Executive Director of the Bush Institute here. Welcome, everybody, to the 2019 graduation of our Presidential Leadership Scholars Program. This year, we celebrate the 5th anniversary of this program. And when we set out to create this 5 years ago, our mission was to bring together a group of motivated rising leaders from across the country. And today, as we celebrate this 5-year anniversary, we're highlighting scholars from each year of the program because they exemplify strong, passionate, collaborative, solution-oriented leadership, just what our country needs. This program is a partnership of 4 presidential foundations, those of George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George H.W. Bush, and Lyndon B. Johnson, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats who led in consequential times. And over the past 6 months, scholars have heard from leaders who've shared their own experiences. They've honed their own leadership skills. They've worked on their personal leadership projects. And they've become a strong network together. But who knew what this program would become after 5 years? We had hoped to build a transformational leadership program. But what we hadn't envisioned was this sense of family that these scholars have with each other. We gain inspiration from them just as much as they gain inspiration from each other. And with the 5-year anniversary, we're really pleased that the goals we set for the program are playing out. The scholars graduating today know that we love to collect data in this program. We collect a lot of it, and we take it really seriously. One of the things that we do is we're very intentional about bringing together a diverse group of scholars. And so our data from our first 5 years shows that diversity in race and ethnicity, in gender, in geography, in ideology, and so many other ways. Graduates of our program give their experience a Net Promoter Score of 95 out of 100. Now, a Net Promoter Score is something used in industries across the country. It's a simple yet effective measure of a program's value to participants. And for context, anything above a 0 is considered good, and scores above 50 are considered excellent. Scholars also consistently report growth in skills, responsibilities, and opportunities for impact, and those are sustained over time. In the program, scholars also get a chance to practice their leadership skills through personal leadership projects. And at graduation, 91% of scholars have told us that they've made progress toward their personal leadership project goals. We're proud of these results, but what we're also really proud of is the intangibles that come from the program. This sense of community and this network is built, which we really can't measure. And that's one of the immense pleasures of seeing the results of PLS. So we're really proud to be associated with this amazing group of people who are graduating today. Of course, we have to thank the sponsors of the program, because none of this would be possible without them: the Moody Foundation, the Honorable David M. Rubenstein, the Caruth Fund at the Communities Foundation of Texas, the Miles Foundation, and Bank of America. So thank you all for being here. Now we're going to see a little bit more of this amazing work that our scholars do in a video that was shot and directed by our own Hollis Meminger from the class of 2017.
My name is Christina Rosenthal. I'm a dentist, a nonprofit founder, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I applied to PLS to be around a camaraderie of individuals who want to support you, who want what's best for you, and who are always looking to see what ways can I support your initiative. My program is determined to be a doctor someday, or DDS for short. It's for students in high school, and we expose them to various healthcare professions.
When I get into the field of medicine, I would like to become an OBGYN, helping all of the women here in Memphis.
I would like to research Hodgkin's lymphoma because I have family members close to me that have that disease.
We also have a toddler component that we started this year, and it's for ages 2 to 5. Some people would question why start so young. I think giving them that positive imagery, that positive messaging right now is planting seeds for later. It influences who we become.
I want to be a doctor.
1, 2, 3.
I'm Renee San Juan. I'm currently stationed at West Point. What sparked my interest for PLS is I recognized that was something that if I could get that kind of investment in me, then the type of work that I want to do could really reach so many different people and try to have a bigger influence. That was really exciting for me. And so I developed a program, basically a connection program between West Point cadets and inner city schools. I take cadets and try to create these experiences where they can work with children, learn about their struggles.
The beginning of our civics engagement program, us cadets organized a project to West New York and New Jersey, to a high school to teach a group of 600 students about the importance of civic engagement.
Before the trip, I had thought about coming back to being an instructor at the academy. When I got a chance to put that into play and experience actually standing up in front of a classroom and teaching, it was an experience like no other. And so I'm definitely going to pursue a teaching career in the future.
The biggest thing that I took from the presidential leadership program is the concept that, wow, these incredible people invested in us for a reason. Somebody really invested in me, and now it's my time to invest in other people so that we can pay it forward.
My name is Sunny Jha. I'm an anesthesiologist at the University of Southern California. I think one of the central tenets of PLS is collaboration, bringing folks together who may or may not have ever met each other. Quinn and I's collaboration certainly personifies that to a T.
My name is Gwen Chu, and I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. The project that I am involved with involves me going over to Kurdistan, Iraq to help build their medical capacity. On our way back from the Austin module, Sonny overheard me talk to a colleague of mine about my work in Kurdistan. And then he says to me, Quinn, I want to be involved in that. And I says, this is wonderful. We really have a need for anesthesiologists.
It takes years and years of training to create highly skilled doctors to treat the folks there who are in desperate need of high quality medical care. And we can help them get to that point. As you told me a year ago, I would have gone to Iraq twice and say no way in heck that would be the case. But, here I am. Had PLS not been, this partnership would never have taken place, and we would not be able to really make the impact we are.
My name is Lucy Lang. I was in the PLS class of 2017, and at that time I was a prosecutor in New York City. My personal leadership project was a class for incarcerated students to study criminal justice together alongside Manhattan prosecutors, and to develop collaborative solutions to pressing problems in criminal justice. One of my star students in my first class was named Jarrell Daniels.
My name is Jarrell Daniels. I'm from the Bronx, New York, born and raised. The program inside Queensboro Correctional Facility, I would say it transformed my life. What I got the most out of the program was the opportunity to speak on behalf of my experiences within the criminal justice system.
Jarrell took the model of the class, and when he was released from prison, he came back to his community and developed a class based on the class I taught. His class is for high school students, and it's called Justice Ambassadors. I'm really proud to say that he's graduating his first cohort.
I had an idea of expanding Lucy's program to, in a way, divert young people who might be at risk to going into the criminal justice system and give them the same opportunity I was given to have their voices included in conversations that lead to the development and implementation of public policies.
We're creating a bridge. I always felt that the city officials and the system was against me. So for me to have an opportunity to be in the same room with these city officials who probably put me in jail or probably put my father in jail, and to actually create a policy that will impact my life, that's a blessing. This program gave me power.
Wow. That film really captured, I think, the beautiful stories of our program and its impact. And I, too, want to give a special thanks to Hollis Meminger, scholar from our 2017 class for producing this film, and he's here with us tonight. Hollis, will you wave, and let's give him a hand. There. I'm Stephanie Street, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Clinton Foundation. And I'm thrilled to be here tonight as we celebrate 5 years of this incredible program and the 2019 class of the Presidential Leadership Scholars. A huge thank you to my friends from the Bush Center for their wonderful hospitality, their partnership, but mostly for their wonderful friendship. PLS is the result of creative collaboration and a belief in, as President Clinton often reminds us, diverse groups make better decisions. The diversity is evident in the makeup of our class, the work of our scholars, and the active involvement of the 4 participating presidential centers. So first, I'd like to thank the wonderful partners from the presidential centers. Ken Hirsch, the president and CEO of the Bush Presidential Center, Bruce Lindsay, my boss for many years, my friend, counselor to President Clinton and Clinton Foundation board member, Mark Updegrove, the president and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, Larry Temple, chairman of the board of the LBJ Foundation and a member of the PLS Advisory Committee, Ambassador Lyndon Olson, Vice Chairman of the LBJ Foundation and member of a PLS Advisory Committee, and Michael Bush, member of the George and Barbara Bush Foundation Advisory Council. I'd also like to recognize some of my Clinton Foundation colleagues who have joined me here this evening, including our CEO, Kevin Thurm, our Chief Communications and Marketing Officer, Craig Manassian, and Chief Development Officer, Lance King. And last, but definitely not least, the directors of the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, Dr. Mike Hemphill and Lindsay Knudsen. Let's give them a hand. To our 58 scholars, we are so proud of each of you and your commitment to improving your communities, our country, and the world around you. Although today marks the conclusion of the 6-month program, the real work is just beginning. I challenge you to honor this experience, continue to test yourself, and remain engaged with one another and the growing network of 298 scholars you are now a part of. Working on this program over the last 5 years has truly been one of the most rewarding experiences of my professional career. And with every graduating class, I am more hopeful about the future of our country and our world. So with that, it is now my honor to welcome to the stage the 2019 PLS class representative, Dr. Michael Hull. Thank you.
Hello, PLS. Thank you. My dear grandmother, who was 101 years old, went to heaven about a year ago. I really miss her. And as we were cleaning out that tiny white farmhouse in rural Indiana, I came across a treasure, at least it is to me, that I want to share with y'all today. This is a note that was stuck to her computer monitor screen. I carry it with me now, and it reads, "Don't forget to click." You see, my grandma and all of her loving patients would drag that clunky mouse of her computer over an icon on the desktop, and then she would wait and wait and wait until she finally noticed this note through those thick bifocals and start clicking. Up until a couple years ago, like clockwork every Sunday, she'd send me an email, a love note, actually. And about half of it would be in all capital letters. She never really figured out that caps lock button. And the subject line every single time read, very profoundly, "It's Grandma." Period. This note and my very presence on this stage are testaments to the great progress my grandmother saw over the course of her century in America's heartland. Testaments to, I think, the spirit of the American people. My grandma grew up on the same middle of cornfields land where I grew up, but in a time when her mama couldn't vote simply because she was a woman. When she was a little girl, she saw the Great Depression and then a New Deal. As a young lady, World War II, and then peace again. And a little while later, she heard that dream of the preacher from Georgia and those hopes of that teacher from Texas, that persuader-in-chief, Lyndon B. Johnson, who became commander-in-chief, who amid the woes of poverty and racism in our country boldly echoed those words from generations before that will echo for generations ahead, that we shall overcome. My grandma watched President George H.W. Bush, bright amid 1,000 points of light, rise from his plane's wreckage to the highest office in the land and a Cold War's end. And she took it to heart, like so many of us in this program did, when he said that a successful life will include service to others, that we have to get off the bench and get in the game, or as Grandma might do, click the mouse. She saw a man with us here tonight, President Bill Clinton. President Bill Clinton in Little Rock taught us that you have to listen first, especially to those who disagree. He was also the man who swung open the doors of trade for North America to make life a little easier for the 800 people in my hometown. And Bill Clinton was also the man who's here tonight to share with us the stage with another man, George W. Bush, the president who taught us that sometimes you get a little paint on your pants, and then you got to change them. Even if it makes you late. President Bush also taught us the importance of humor and humility, optimism, and crystal clear values. And it was this man, in a defining moment for my generation, who stood upon the rubble of the Twin Towers and boomed into a megaphone so the world would know that America would overcome. My grandmother believed in these presidents, and in fact, she believed in all of us. My grandmother believed in Americans, in these great United States, because over and again in her lifetime, out of heartache came hope and then progress, to eradicate a disease, to put a man on the moon, to find peace among enemies, and with new technology, to warm the heart of a homesick Hoosier. Every time he read those words, "It's Grandma." The Presidential Leadership Scholars Program gave my fellow scholars and me remarkable gifts, a better understanding of our history and heritage, tools and confidence for better leadership. But it also did for us what 101 years in America did for my grandmother. It gave us this unshakable belief in the bright future of this country we love, and in the power of standing together across our differences on the way there. And so tonight, in these divided and partisan times for our country, on the trails blazed by these two men, and on the paths and the shoulders of all of America's heroes, as one put it, let's roll. Folks, where I come from, grandmas know best, so don't forget to click. Don't get caught waiting on that next courageous leader, that next righteous movement staring at the screen, because that's you, and that's us. And together, out of many, we are one. Inspired by this program, we're already dreaming bigger, not just for ourselves, but for others too, because as Mrs. Bush said, our legacy is the lives we touch, because out of many, we are one. And so, friends, I ask, will you join me tonight? So very grateful for and empowered by this program to carry its torch. from boardrooms to courtrooms to operating rooms, from cockpits to Congress and across this very stage, as evidence that America's best years are still to come. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. We got presidents waiting on us here. I got to get this going. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage for the Moody Conversation, PLS alumni and all-stars Jay Bhatt and Lisa Hallett, Holly Kuzmich, the executive director of the Bush Institute, a fellow daughter of Indiana, and the 42nd and 43rd presidents of the United States, Bill Clinton and George W. Bush. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, wow, well, if that wasn't inspiring, now we've got to beat that. So, no pressure, no pressure. So I want to start with Presidents Bush and President Clinton about this program 5 years ago when we launched it, and what we thought it would be then, and where it's come now. And so President Bush, at the time we launched this, you talked about how you wanted people in this program to be from all walks of life, different political persuasions, people who work hard and work with others. Why was that important to you then as a piece of this program, before we had ever met any of these people who we've just seen today?
You know, 5 years ago, like today, there's so I give Michelle Obama a piece of candy. And the whole world says, wow, we need more of that. I was stunned, you know. Clinton and I go to the President's Cup, and they take a picture of us, and my buddies back here went, man, it's good that you all can get along. I said, yeah, we're Southern governors and great BS artists. Anyway, and so there's a need for bipartisanship, which is kind of an overused word, but there is a need for it. And this is a program that is absolutely not political, and yet it achieves a common objective, which seems to me to be a spirit that ought to be taking place more around the country. And so it's awesome. It's really good. And it's made really good because of the people who've joined the program. Mm-hmm.
President Clinton, when you said 5 years ago, you talked about how you hoped that people had vigorous debate and disagreement in this program, but that they ultimately found ways to come to a resolution. So say a little bit more about that in terms of your vision.
First of all, I've been concerned for a long time, for at least 25 years, about how we keep, you know, drifting apart. And we all say we want people to work together, but at least in politics, we often don't vote for what we say we want. Or once we get what we say we want, we don't do what's necessary to bring it to reality. So I got to thinking about this, and I formed an unusual friendship with President Bush when he was president. And I've really come to not only like him, but to respect him and to believe if he says something, he's on the level. You can really have a fight with anybody as long as they're on the level. You know, and there's just too much in life that's not on the level now. And it's like this. So I wanted, what I had in mind when we started this was two little lessons I've learned in life. And one is, no matter how much difference you have with somebody else, if you can agree on an objective you both want to achieve, then you can have your arguments on the way to a destination. But if it's enough for you just to keep showing how pure you are and you never have to produce anything, then it's hard for people to get anything done. So we've tried to get goal-oriented people in this program. And I also believe in an interdependent world. That's why I disagree with so much of what's happening today. I think diversity is a godsend. I think it's one of America's great blessings. I think that diverse groups make better decisions than homogenous ones. And the closest we've come to passing, for example, the immigration reform bill, I believe, was when he was president. And I strongly supported it. And most Democrats I knew didn't, not because they weren't for immigration reform, because they found something they didn't like about it. And so I thought, well, this is not like crafting a bill. You know, you just show up and you work on your project and talk to other people about it. And the final thing is, you become people to each other. If you're just a two-dimensional cartoon, it's a lot easier to dismiss you than it is if you're a three-dimensional person. And I thought if we got really extraordinary people together, that you might become people to each other and do even more extraordinary things.
Yeah, I got one other point I forgot. A little unfair to our other panelists, I know, but, you know, I was the president. Anyway, so the real challenge for these presidential libraries is to be contributors. And I can't think of a better way to invigorate our library, Bill's library, Dad's library, and Lyndon Johnson's library than to have a program that utilizes our respective resources to train people to be leaders in the future.
Great. Okay. Jay and Lisa, I want to bring you in. Jay, tell us first, you're in healthcare. Tell us how you ended up there, what drives you, and what you're doing now.
Thank you, Holly. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jay Bhatt, and I'm the son of a pharmacist who worked on the south side of Chicago for most of his life, and a mom who's a factory worker. And I spent a lot of my time growing up with my dad, going to people's homes on the south side who couldn't make it to clinic because they didn't have bus fare, or had other things going on that were priorities, or when they'd walk outside the door, the wind would hit them so hard in their face that they had to go right back in. And so when I went to college, I went over to a barber shop to get my hair cut, and I met a guy, James, who was wearing a Cubs hat. And so I started talking to him, because I'm a Cubs fan. And then learning about him and what the barber were talking about, that it was so difficult for them to access care, that they couldn't meet the challenges of HIV or cancer or chronic disease. I left that day, not with a great haircut, but with incredible conversation. And so I kept going back. And over time, we ended up working together with a team that put a clinic in the back end of that barbershop and said, if you want to get your hair cut for free, then you got to be seen by the doctor. And over the course of 5 years, the rates of chronic disease started declining. They started helping each other in the community. They started helping each other get jobs, because economic development and mobility was important. And so that told me two things. One, I wanted to doctor in underserved communities as a vehicle for social change. And so I'm a primary care doctor and a geriatrician. And I wanted to partner with communities to change their future, because I saw it happen. And so I think we have an incredible opportunity as leaders in this program to do that. And currently I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer for the American Hospital Association. We represent nearly 5,000 hospitals, 2 million nurses, 285,000 clinicians, all working together to drive towards a society of healthy communities where all individuals have their highest potential for health.
There you go.
Thank you, Jay.
Yes.
Okay, Jay, we're going to get in a little bit more about you in a minute, but I want Lisa to tell us about herself and her story, because she's got a pretty compelling story for the work that she does.
Thanks. I'm a proud Army spouse, and my husband John and I traveled the world being a part of the military family. And John deployed to southern Afghanistan in August of 2009. And like we do in the military, 3 weeks after John deployed, our youngest, our daughter Heidi, was born. 3 weeks later, with a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and this little bitty baby who my husband hadn't met, I was notified that John had been killed on his way home from a Goodwill mission. I was terrified, overwhelmed, and heartbroken. But I wasn't alone. For our unit that year, we lost 41 service members. And we were all looking for a way to heal, to grieve, to remember these men and women who were our military family. And so we began to run together. We met in the Burger King parking lot the first time, and we ran around the airfield, but we evolved. Weekly runs became how we spoke the names of our fallen service members, how we supported each other, and how we moved forward. When the unit came home, we realized that they needed the very same things that we needed, and that really words weren't big enough to capture everything we felt and wanted to say. But with running, we didn't need to have right words. And that's how Wear Blue, Run to Remember was born. Wear Blue is a running community around the world that honors the service and sacrifice of the American military.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. Thanks.
She also has run 4 50-mile races. So President Bush and I, he used to own a baseball team. I was just a fat band boy. But we have organized a sports management and betting firm, and we'll give you 2 to 1. You can't outrun her in a 50-mile race. That's how we're going to send our grandchildren to college.
Jay, I want to go back to you. One of the things that you have talked about when we talked about vigorous disagreement and debate, one of the things that you talked about that happened within your class was you had some tough conversations with your class. Say more about that.
Yep, thank you. It was a moment which crystallizes why this program is so important. It started in Module 2 at College Station. And one night when the Aggie Wranglers were dancing as a performance, we really appreciated and watched that performance in awe. And then there was a question and answer session right after it. And the young buck who's the captain there started answering these questions. And we were just totally enthralled with the conversation. And then right in the middle, one of our classmates, a scholar, Catherine, says, I got a question. Are you up for a challenge? A dance-off? So then the young buck looks at Fred McClure at the time, looks back at us, looks back at Fred, says, I don't think we can, pauses, turn down a challenge. And so what ensued happening was proud Texan tradition of dance combined with a dance from the northern part of India, from the other side of the world, where me and Scott, who had, in my class, whose wife had served in New Delhi, he had learned dancing Bhangra, North Indian folk dance. So we ended up coming on a stage and together started dancing with the Aggie Wranglers. And literally 5 minutes later, the seats started emptying and others in our class started coming up and dancing. And then it was the whole stage of our classmates together in one, dancing to a common vision of being together, of being vulnerable, of being open. And we even got the whoop Aggie Wrangler sound in there too. And that opened up this opportunity for us to have conversation, because the next day we did an exercise in which well-intentioned, we construct systems sometimes but that have good intention that may leave people out. And so we had 3 teams, and 2 of the teams wanted to, in an honest and transparent way, create a partnership. But in doing that, left a 3rd team out. And so in the debrief, we recognized this. And that awareness of what had happened led to an important conversation. And it helped us realize that systems can be constructed unintentionally to leave people out. And as leaders, it's important for us to recognize that, be aware of it, and rewrite and redesign the rules so that we don't leave people out. And if we can't, then at least recognize what's happening. And so that led to a culmination at the end of the program in which nearly the whole class sat on a hotel lobby room floor, eating pizza and being as vulnerable as you can be about the struggles they had from being stopped by police as a black man, or struggling with their identity, or having challenges with even their issues that they were struggling with at home. And so that really created a sense of common purpose. So when I think about leadership, it's accepting responsibility for shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. And I think we did that really inspired by the legacies of President Bush and President Clinton, Lyndon B. Johnson, and President George H.W. Bush. So we're grateful for that.
I hope they didn't film you dancing with the Wranglerettes or whatever they're
called. Oh, we got a video.
You do? Keep it under wraps.
Lisa, one of the things we hear so often from the scholars in the program is the sense of inspiration that this program brings to you. Does that ring true for you?
Absolutely. I think so often leadership can be very lonely, and I think quite often we operate in silos as leaders. But I remember walking into the second module, and we're at your dad's library in College Station, and I read that last letter that he wrote as he was leaving office to you. And he says, "Your success now is our country's success. I'm rooting hard for you." And it was such a message, I think, not just for President Clinton, but for all of us. And being a part of the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program changed how I view myself as an American and really what my role is in achieving that success. And I had thought, honestly, being a military spouse who had sacrificed my husband, that was it. I dropped the mic. I've served my country. But I realized through this program, looking at all of the work, the passion, the effort, the dreams of the leaders in this program, that John's sacrifice is worth a country realized. And America is worth each of us stepping up to the plate, entering the arena, and owning our piece of the fight so that we can build the communities in the future that our country deserves.
So President Clinton and President Bush, I'd love to hear from you both. You've now gotten to meet almost 300 scholars over the past 5 years. What have you taken from meeting them? What have you learned from them versus what have they learned from you? Do you have any particular memories of any of them?
Well, first, I have learned that there is this hunger people have to make a difference, not by getting another title or making another buck, but by making somebody else's life better. Lifting somebody up who's broken, helping somebody to do something that makes things work better. And, you know, I'm not young anymore. I hate it, but I'm not. And the longer I live, the more that's how I measure my life. You know, are people better off when you quit than when you started? The children have a brighter future. Things coming together instead of being torn apart. That's what I saw in the lives of Dr. Coy, the Cambodian refugee who was a member of this class, and I think now is in Louisiana working. She really inspired me. We had a class member who was a member of the small Pamiri sect in Tajikistan, and family was in danger of losing their lives, and America saved a lot of those people's lives by letting them come here. And we had a scholar who was determined to prove that we made the right decision by giving back to this country. And my personal favorite all time was when we were in Little Rock for a graduation ceremony, a guy who had lost both his legs in military service, named Karcher, as I remember, came through here and took a picture with me, and he said, I want to thank you and President Bush for getting us together with people we didn't know existed. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you see her? And he pointed to this very formidable, physically imposing woman, Kendra Reynolds, who was, I don't know, she's almost 6 feet tall, and she looked like she could bench press me on a cold day. And she's an African-American, lesbian, liberal Democrat, head of the Human Rights Campaign in Arkansas. Everything the opposite of this guy. And he said, you know, I'm dedicated to helping veterans, people like me not be disempowered to do things. He says, I have learned so much from her, and I hope she's learned something from me. And if it hadn't been for you and President Bush, we'd never met each other. We wouldn't even know people like each other existed. She looked at me warily, and I looked at her warily. He said, you know, I'd be glad to fight for her now. And that, to me, is the enduring thing. The details, even the specifics of the projects, are not as important for all of you who have more tomorrows than yesterdays to have your mind and your heart in the right place. You're smart, you know more about whatever it is you're doing than we do, but you will make good decisions if you believe that we should go forward together.
President Bush.
Yeah, so there's some people discouraged about the future of the country, and I strongly suggest they get to meet people in the PLS classes, and all of a sudden, what may seem to be a dim future will be a bright future. And that's what I've learned, that the country is full of decent, caring, compassionate citizens willing to serve.
Lisa and Jay, talk a little bit about where your organizations are now and some of the work that you're doing because of being in PLS and how it impacted your work.
So for me, I came into the program at a time where I was losing faith in some aspects of this country. And seeing pain and suffering and not seeing it actually in some places get better was something that was hard. And what I saw in the program was 60 sources of hope. Sources of hope that could change a nation. And with little acts of leadership and large acts of courage can make a difference. And so as a result, one of the areas I worked on was training 30 community health workers across Africa to reach nearly 100,000 people. And part of that work was built on the notion that we've got to meet people where we're at. So Esther, whose daughter couldn't get malaria treatment, became a community health worker to serve those in her community to change the trajectory of the course of someone with HIV or chronic disease. But abroad and at home, those issues are seen as well. And so we were able to partner with Unidos and the National Urban League to create strategic alliances, unlikely partners that I wouldn't have dreamt necessarily that we could partner with. But we were able to because of this notion that I learned in the program of that it's important not only to dance at the edge of discomfort and comfort, but at times to push into that area of discomfort and to enable others to be in that space so that together you can challenge the status quo. And as a result, one of the most lasting issues I've worked on is this disconnect between non-clinical leaders and clinical leaders because we're trained differently. And so even though we're going for the same thing, we want better communities, we want healthier communities, it requires the kind of conversation that's hard. And so I led a leadership development program that has trained 100 teams, that has then led to impacting a network of 1,600 hospitals in 34 states, our Hospital Improvement Innovation Network, that has saved nearly $1 billion, avoided 130,000 patient safety incidents, and saved 13,000 lives. So that is the impact that this program has had, and we're so grateful for it. And the other thing, my side PLP was creating opportunity for the collective energy of the class of 2016 to help the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
That's a stretch.
But it worked. 2016, they won.
It wasn't a stretch.
Yeah.
2019 is a stretch.
President Clinton's with me.
Lisa, tell us about where you are now, what you took from the program, and how you have put it into action.
So in the summer before I applied to this program, I had this moment with my children. And we're going through baby books. We have them all out. And the boys and I are laughing because they're chubby and cute. But my daughter, Heidi, who's my youngest, she's not laughing. And she's feisty. But she actually gets so mad, she puts her hands on her hips and she says, "Where are my pictures with my daddy?" I don't have any words for her. And the reality is that our Gold Star youth are walking a very uncommon path. Our children whose parents volunteered to serve, well aware of the risks that it carried, their parents' service has really become their sacrifice. So in the year leading up to the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, out of those simple Saturday runs with Wear Blue Run to Remember, we created a youth mentorship program, pairing children of fallen military with currently serving members of our armed forces in a run-focused mentorship to build resilience, healthy coping mechanisms, and for kids like Heidi, which are so often the story, a sense of identity. We launched at Joint Base Lewis McChord, our flagship community, and I was overwhelmed by these really incredible kids. These kids who have sacrificed everything, are smart, they're kind, they're resilient, they're fast. But they have so much potential, but we needed to create a foundation. So we launched a very successful program at JBLM, but there's over 10,000 youth in America who've lost a parent in military service, and we recognized a larger need beyond Joint Base Lewis McChord. So under the tutelage, the mentorship, and honestly, just this raw belief in one another, the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program gave me the structure and the foundation to scale the program. Through the support of my mentors, I mean, we've had countless calls talking about strategy. Isabel gave me a platform to tell the story across the country. Chris talked me through fundraising. And the number of times my fellow leadership scholars have said, you can do this, let's talk through this, gave me just the bones to take a program that's across the country. So now we're at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in San Antonio, Texas. Almost 10% of our children who've lost a parent in military service live in Texas. And we're growing going forward. But these kids are amazing, and they deserve a nation who stands with them, not taking pity, but taking care of them. And this growth and this gift to these kids is because of the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program.
President Bush, can I ask you to say a little more about your deep care of this issue, too, of veterans? It's something you feel passionately about, that you're still active in.
Yeah, so the question is, back to what I was talking about a sense of despondency. Think about the fact that a nation who's had millions volunteer and have learned the characteristics necessary to be good leaders: teamwork, courage, sacrifice. Some of them didn't go to college, but all of them got a PhD in life. And they're going to help lead the country. And to the extent that they need help, the society of ours needs to provide help. And one of the things we do here is we're dealing with the invisible wounds of war, and talking about a template forward. And yeah, I mean, look, Vietnam era, when Clinton and I are aging baby boomers, and during the Vietnam War, when the troops came back, many soldiers were told to take off their uniforms so that the populace wouldn't identify them as military and therefore wouldn't treat them like hell. And the attitude's totally different now. It's whether you agreed with my decisions or not, American people agree that serving in the military is an awesome experience, and they welcome them with open arms. The question is, are the programs that have started around veterans effective? And one of the things the Bush Center is, we want to make sure they're effective and to help these vets.
President Clinton, you similarly still have such a passion on health care. I'm sorry? You still have such a passion on health care. So Jay's work is something you've long been tackling and still spend time on today.
And we still do, in many ways. You know, I was thinking, listening to all of you talk, this is a pure moment of personal privilege, but President Bush has lost both his parents since the last time we had this graduation ceremony. And I spent a lot of time thinking about them both. And I want you to know something, since we're talking about health care. 30 years ago this year, your father asked all the governors to meet at the University of Virginia to develop national education goals based on a report done 35 years ago, 36 years ago, when President Reagan was in office, by his education secretary, Terrell Bell, from Utah, a guy I liked a lot. He was very good at it. And he said, I want you to do this. And so I represented the Democrats. I was in the longest serving governor in the country, and we were having dinner with President and Mrs. Bush in Thomas Jefferson's shadow. And so the president asked Hillary, said, I know you're interested in education, but he said, do you know anything on health care? She said, oh yeah, Mr. President, that's mostly what I work on in my private capacity, and I'm really trying to drive down the infant mortality rate, because America has a terrible infant mortality rate given our income. We're about 15th in the world, or whatever it was at the time. And he looked at her and he said, I just can't believe that. Our healthcare system's too good. And she said to him, this is an example in leadership. She said to him, well, would you like me to get you the information? He said, no, I'll get it myself, and I'll be back in touch with you. Next night, George Bush, the President of the United States, and I'm the governor of a little state, right, comes up to me and gives me a note which said, Hillary, I checked the figures. You were right. I was wrong. What can we do about this? And you should never forget that. These were children, and he lost a child. Debbie lost a sibling when she was very young. And at some point, you know, we can't scream fake news and alternative facts with each other. The infant mortality rate is what it is. The number of the people who are here at the border who are legal or not legal or whatever, they are what they are. But here was a man who, he didn't even have us there. There's no headline in this. We were there to do something on education. But he cared about children and children's health. And he asked, so he sent Hillary a letter. She said, you were right, I was wrong. What can we do about this? I will never forget that as long as I live.
Jay and Lisa, what did you, speaking of President George H.W. Bush, what did you learn by being able to study him and his presidency and the way he conducted himself in life?
You know, I think for me, what resonated, there are two things that resonated. One, what Lisa talked about earlier about this letter to President Clinton, and you know, and that was a reflection of empathy, and empathy in a really meaningful, deep way, and that was reflected in the area of German reunification, and the fact that President George H.W. Bush did not want to go to Germany, and he knew what would happen. It came from a place of empathy, and I think it comes also from the place that's consistent across all four presidents, of when things are tough, that it's the moral compass and the values that always anchor you, and you come back to that, and I think that that's what I'm so grateful for learning about across these four presidents.
Damn, I thought you were going to say he raised wonderful children.
That's true. 100%. We'd say he helped them get into good trouble, too.
Lisa, do you have anything you want to add from your time?
I spoke about it before, but I remember one message from that second module with President George H.W. Bush. But he said, before you call someone and ask for something, you call and ask about the weather. And it was such a beautiful reminder of how important it is for us to reinsert humanity into the relationships. And so we're trying to negotiate leadership and paths forward, all important work. We've got to take a step back and remember that these are people with whom we're working, and that there's an opportunity to develop something deeper, more meaningful before we move into the work that we're designing to do.
President Bush,
so here's the challenge. People communicate by email or whatever, Twitter, what they call them. And so how can you be empathetic if the way you communicate with somebody is via short texts? And how can you possibly understand how somebody else thinks? You know, you can get their opinion, but you can't answer the question why. You know, what is it? And so PLS really is an antidote to people who are willing to communicate just via machine. And it's going to be a real challenge for our society, I think. Mm-hmm. The inability of people to be able to talk face to face and to listen carefully. And PLS runs counter to that. And what were you going to ask?
I was going to ask you about your dad.
Oh, my dad? What about him?
Just anything, is there anything they haven't hit already that you really want to make sure?
His last words on earth were, I love you.
That says a lot.
Yeah, it does say a lot. So he gave me the greatest gift, unconditional love. For those of you men out there who end up having children, just remember the greatest gift you can give your child is unconditional love, which means your family has to be a priority. You know, your career can't be a priority, winning votes can't be a priority, making money can't be a priority. The number one priority, if you're a father, is to give your children unconditional love. That's what he taught me. And I tested it.
Oh, okay, so we've got a group of 58 scholars here today who are graduating, and Lisa and Jay, I want to hear from you. You've now been Jay, you've been out for 3 years. Lisa, you've been out for 1. What's your advice to them? What have you learned since being in the program? What do you want them to know about life after? It's not after PLS, the continuation of PLS into the future.
Put us on the spot, Holly. Thanks.
Stay in touch.
The end.
That's it. We're good.
There's something magical about taking space outside of the chaos of our lives to join like-minded individuals who believe in a realized America. And I think it's so important as we return to the busyness and the demands of our day-to-day lives, which of course are pressing, that you continue to take a step back and stay engaged in those relationships, the space and the reflection that you need to remain motivated and in tune with why you do the work that you do.
So I would say, you know, for me, the work that we've been able to do on the opioid epidemic would not have been possible to be scaled if it wasn't for the work with Kevin Cossie from my class, with the work of the Clinton Foundation in bringing together a constellation of individuals across the PLS classes, from attorney general to, you know, in terms of law enforcement to police to healthcare to nonprofit to education. That's the power of this, that at any moment you can convene a community that can help you imagine the impossible to be possible. But you've got to be open to that opportunity. And I think it's relationships. The relationships have helped me when I've been down and out, when I've needed a different perspective, one to challenge me. And we've cultivated a group of board of advisors that are very different, you know, to help us continue to move these forward. And, you know, I think President Bush was talking about love. Love is the oldest medicine we have. Leadership can be lonely. Leadership can be tough. And to have this incredible community of 300 people that are now sources of hope and a family, they help you be centered and help you dream in a way that can change the lives of people in this country. And so I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most surprising successes of the program is the fact that people stay in touch and they want to help each other. You know, I ride mountain bikes with one of her pals who was in the class, and she's always talking about Lisa. Lisa's doing this, Lisa's doing that, Lisa run 50 miles, Lisa that. But it shows the kinship and friendship that exist, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is a beautiful thing.
President Clinton, what's your charge and advice to this current class?
That you need to think about what got you here and where you'd like to be in 10 years. And whatever it is, whatever your career is, make sure there's a space there to help other people, to empower other people, to improve other people's lives. We visited one of the alumni, I don't know if Brian's here tonight, but we visited a project here which is dedicated to reducing the recidivism rate of people who've been in the juvenile justice system through the arts. And they have a recidivism rate of 11%. So we went to talk to these kids about why. And you didn't have to be all in rocket science to figure it out. They said, we felt valued, we felt trusted, we felt that people thought we were smart and had talent and we could contribute, and we love this. There's 1,000 things you can do. And I love listening to you talk, and thanks for what you said about the opioid thing, but the point I want to make to all of you is that until I left the White House, it required so much concentration to survive and mostly to flourish in a political environment I drastically underappreciated. The public good that a private person can do. And especially now, there are over 1 million foundations in America, and more than half of them have been started in the last 20 years. And so I know you get discouraged, but I hope you'll all be politically active and whatever you think about politics. I hope you vote in every election and be vocal and all that. But remember, you came here as citizens because you believed that you had a mission and you were going to do it. I just hope you'll keep that for the rest of your life, because I'm a lot older than all of you, and it's still what makes me happy. It makes me happy. I'm sitting there thinking, when George asked him, he said, is there a backlog of people who want to get in this arts program? And they said, well, not really, because Texas did some juvenile justice reform, but there is a de facto backlog because too many people would like to be in this program and they can't get themselves here because it's a big county, you know. So without even thinking, I said, well, you guys think of something we can do to help, and we'll try to help. And I hope you'll always feel this. That's the only thing I can tell you. 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, if you can barely get around and you got to go places on a walker, it'll still make you happy. And when you look back in your life, you'll remember the people you shared this time with and the other people who were at some fork in the road and you gave them a helping hand or they gave you one, and you'll never forget it. So thank you. Good luck.
Well, that was the perfect segue. We're now going to...
We forgot to say the program was run by Byron Sanders, PLS graduate.
Yeah.
We're trying to get these donors spread up.
Thank you, sir.
He's happy, and I think he's going to come knocking on our door since I was dumb enough to offer to help without asking his permission.
Thank you for that reminder. Okay, we are now at that point in the program where we're going to recognize the graduating class of 2019. So let's thank President Bush, President Clinton, Lisa Hallett, and Jay Bhatt for this conversation. And now we're going to welcome to the stage Michael Bush, who is on the Advisory Council for the George H.W. Bush Foundation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to introduce the 2019 Presidential Leadership Scholar graduates. And let's begin with Kevin Adler. Nuno Alves. Whitney Armstrong. Bahar Atver. Maya Babu. Rai Barcourt. Aaron Bernstein. Bill Berrien. Carrie Bishke. Tanya Burnell. Aaron Butler. Lynn Gettleman Shahab. Alan Cohen. Ian Daly. Kim Davis. Connor Donahue. Matt Driscoll. Scott Eisner. Andrew Erdman. Chris Flaherty. Jill Floyd. Erica Gonzalez. Vivian Greentree. Aditi Gupta. Mark Haydar. Sumera Hawk. Jeanette Godry Haney. Tom Huntley. Michael Hull. Todd Huber. Alfia Ilachiva. Seth Jordan. Dilafruz Konobayeva. Eric Corum. Jolene Letcher. Nancy Liu. Ben Maddox. Roya Mahbub. Katie Martin. Ricardo Correa Marquez. Jamala McFadden. Shruti Marotra. Willie Montgomery. Kat Murray. Desmond Upton Patton. Gita Pulapali. Ajay Suhashpal. Mariam Saifi. Joseph Sakran. Dan Savage. Melissa Simon. Biete Ross Smith. Liza Smoker. Jeff Stein. Jesse Sullivan. Tier Suzuki. Jamila Thomas. And Eugene Yee. Please join me in congratulating the 2019 Presidential Leadership Scholars. Thank you.
I'm Mark Updegrove, and I have the distinct honor of closing out this graduation session. But before I address our class of 2019, I want to address prospective candidates for our next class, the class of 2020. We are now accepting applications for the class of 2020, and I encourage those who are interested to visit presidentialleadershipscholars.org to find out more information about our program and to hopefully apply. And the deadline is August 31st. So congratulations to all of you. This program was initiated by the two former presidents we heard from today, good men of different political parties who had big ambitions to continue to make their marks in the world, but who saw even greater potential in working together. It was announced 5 years ago during what the New York Times called, in an article on the program, a time of heightened partisanship in Washington. Since then, division and discord have deepened, not only in Washington, but throughout our nation. So it's useful to remember that PLS was born out of the spirit of bipartisanship, of coming together, often overcoming our differences, toward the common good. Not only would our nation's best and brightest learn and benefit from the leadership examples of 4 presidents, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans, but from each other, tapping into a network of those like each of you who come from different backgrounds and have different views on the world, but who are united in fulfilling what President Johnson would call the oldest, most basic mission of our country: to right wrong, to do justice, to serve man. As you go forward, also know that you have not only those in this room to draw from, but those who have gone before you too. Collectively, the larger PLS community is what George H.W. Bush would have called points of light, radiating the promise of a more luminous world, bringing us toward a brighter future where greater unity can prevail. We need that today. We need you today. Good luck and Godspeed. Thank you.